Anderson, she has front row seats to opening night. Joins us now live on SportsCenter from Minneapolis. And Josina, the show begins ESPN2, 8 Eastern. So tell us what's on the agenda for the teams tonight.
Well, let me tell you guys, preparations are underway for opening night of the media session here at Super Bowl 52 in the XL Energy Center here in St. Paul, Minnesota. And the Patriots are slated to go first, as you mentioned, at 8:10 p.m. Eastern time, followed by the Philadelphia Eagles at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Now, guys, I want to step away so you can get an idea of how the podiums are situated behind me here in this arena. All of the stars for the Patriots will take a seat behind one of these podiums right here. Just the stars will be on the top level. Those names include Brandon Cooks, Steph Gilmore, Bill Belichick, David Andrews, Tom Brady, Matthew Slater, Devin McCourty, Danny Amendola, Patrick Chung, who replaced Malcolm Butler, James White, and Daron Harmon. So definitely a lot of media stories to get through tonight as we open media night here in this arena this evening.
Yeah, the upper deck, it's like a VIP booth at a club out there, and it looks like one inside. One of the most entertained voices.
Oh, is that how it looks? Yeah.
Kind of does. Josina, if we're talking about one of the more entertaining voices we want to hear from tonight, that would be of one Rob Gronkowski. He is still in the concussion protocol, leaving his presence there in jeopardy. What can you tell us about Gronk?
Yes, as of right now, Rob Gronkowski does not have an assigned podium here in this arena. If you are not cleared from the concussion protocol, you cannot be situated here. And as you know, it is not ideal for someone in the protocol as they're trying to make sure that you are clear from symptoms like light stimulus, anything that would aggravate the condition. So right now, he is not slated to be here. But I did talk to backup tight end Dwayne Allen, who told me, hey, listen, right now we are not sure how much he's going to fully be available, but we know that if he is available, obviously he makes this team better, but we want to be as sharp as we can be, and it is up to us to make sure that the Patriots offense can function as it's supposed to, and also that we can do the best that we can. Guys, back to you.
Okay, Josina, settle in and enjoy it. Live coverage, 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2.
SportsCenter on the road is confidently presented by Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans.
Now to college hoops, the top four in the AP poll remained unchanged this week, but Virginia picked up 16 first-place votes from Villanova to cut into the Wildcats' lead this week. One significant development not pictured: after 1 week absence, Kentucky jumped back into the poll at number 21 after that road win against West Virginia, who dropped from number 7 to 15th this week. Tonight on the court, a game that could affect next week's rankings. Duke hosting Notre Dame. Mike Krzyzewski 5-5 against former assistant Mike Brey all-time, 18-0 against all his other former assistants. Marvin Bagley III is on his way to making history. Not only could he become the first ACC freshman to average 20 and 10 for an entire season, but he's also in position to shatter Duke's freshman scoring record. And by the way, the fourth-ranked Blue Devils coming off that home loss to number 2 Virginia, which snapped a 15-game home win streak. The last time Duke lost back-to-back home games, you have to go back to January of 2016. With Jay Billis on the call for Notre Dame and Duke following us here on ESPN. You know, Jay, Duke lost to a very good Virginia team, as I mentioned, at home Saturday. How should Coach K feel about his young Blue Devils at this point in the season?
I think he feels pretty good that this team is getting better. They're getting better defensively. Their numbers are much better. They've got some injuries on the bench. It would be nice if they were deeper, but their first five is awfully good. And I think typical of what Coach K has done in the past, he's got a very much of a next play mentality. He actually mentioned that quite a bit in practice today. They did some really good things, especially in the second half against Virginia. They just want to build on that, and they're going to be looking to face a depleted Notre Dame team, and they feel like they have to guard the three-point line and rebound because Notre Dame is one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country, especially right now. In ACC play, they're averaging over 15 offensive rebounds per game, and they're the number one offensive rebounding team in the league in ACC games.
Yeah, one of the reasons they have that is because Marvin Bagley III is a really good player. That's why Duke's ranked 4th in the country. So let me ask you this, Jay, for the sake of argument. Let's say that the Player of the Year race is a two-man battle right now between Marvin Bagley III and Oklahoma's Trae Young. How would you assess the candidacy of both of those guys?
They're both putting up incredible numbers. I mean, Trae Young is average. He's leading the nation in scoring and assists. And then Marvin Bagley is on pace to be the first freshman to ever lead the ACC in scoring and rebounding, and especially in ACC play. He's close to 23 points a game and close to 13 rebounds a game, shooting 60% from the field. I tend to go with Bagley just by a hair. I mean, they're both great, but Bagley has been so consistent and so efficient. I think it's hard to turn away from him, but it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I think that Trae Young is the closest we've seen to Steph Curry in college basketball since Steph Curry. He's that good. Do you think team success will be the determining factor in Player of the Year honors? I guess Jay could not hear me there. Well, Jay's going to stand by. We hope to bring him back a little bit later here on SportsCenter because we do want to get his take on the controversy that we have right now at Michigan State. Tom Izzo going to get Jay's take on Coach Izzo handling some very difficult questions over the weekend. That's coming up later here on SportsCenter.
Before that, we want to get some breaking news here on SportsCenter. According to ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski, the Los Angeles Clippers are engaged in serious talks that would send All-Star forward Blake Griffin to the Detroit Pistons. That, according to league sources. Again, the breaking news here on SportsCenter, our Adrian Wojnarowski is reporting that the Los Angeles Clippers are in serious talks to send Blake Griffin to the Detroit Pistons, which would be a blockbuster trade in the NBA. Of course, we're getting close to the NBA's All-Star break. And look, Michael, when you talk about some of the moves that were being made, we saw Chris Paul depart LA to go to Houston in the offseason. You wondered what would happen with this team going forward. DeAndre Jordan's another piece to the puzzle that we wondered what would happen. And now if they move Blake Griffin, it is crystal clear that that Clippers organization is, in fact, moving on from one of the teams that just could never get over the hump.
Yeah, because from the time that Blake was drafted first overall out of Oklahoma, he was seen as the building block for the Clippers' future. You add Chris Paul to that, and they had these grandiose ideas of being successful, but then all of a sudden it fell apart. Chris Paul leaves, and the one name you thought was going to be going somewhere was DeAndre Jordan because of the value that he could add to any team.
And we don't know that he's not.
Correct. We do not know that, but it would be somewhat of a surprise. I know Clipper Nation would be shocked if Blake Griffin is the one to leave before DeAndre Jordan does. But again, as you said, that sort of speaks to how the organization is looking towards the future. Jerry West now involved in the front office there. Wow, that's very intriguing.
And we know going into the offseason, Daryl Morey, the GM of the Houston Rockets, said before, look, you've got to build your franchise nowadays to contend and compete with the Golden State Warriors. They bring in Chris Paul, and now it appears, again, our Adrian Wojnarowski reporting Los Angeles Clippers, serious talks that would send Blake Griffin to the Detroit Pistons. You pair him with a player like Andre Drummond, who's got a chip on his shoulder from not making the All-Star game, and he's fired up at this point. But what we know out of the NBA, at least over the course of the offseason going into the regular season, they dominate a news cycle unlike any other. In fact, let's bring in our Adrian Wojnarowski, who joins us here live on SportsCenter to get into the breaking news. And Woj, you just put this out a second ago. What can you tell us about how serious these talks are?
These are absolutely serious talks. They've been ongoing now for a couple of days, I'm told. And the Clippers and Pistons are working through details of a potential blockbuster that would deliver Blake Griffin to the Pistons. There's no agreement in place, but there is significant traction to a potential deal.
When you look at a player like Blake Griffin, and Michael and I were just talking about it a second ago, Chris Paul goes to the Rockets in the offseason, and the remaining player would be DeAndre Jordan should Blake Griffin depart via this trade. Why do you think the Clippers are fielding calls for who right now is still their best player and biggest draw?
Well, he's certainly the player that can bring them back the most return in a trade, and they have found in talks with DeAndre Jordan, Lou Williams. Certainly the market's not as robust for those two players. Blake has been the player all along that they could get the most back for. And trading Blake Griffin would signal something of a rebuild, but it depends what kind of package they'd get back for him here, how many are future assets, how many might help in the present. I think any deal they would do for Blake, I think the Clippers would like to get both, some players to help in the short term, and then some younger assets, whether it's a young player, draft picks, long-term. But they have made a decision in L.A. in terms of their roster that it needs to be reshaped, and there's no more profound way that they could do that than to complete this deal with Detroit for Blake Griffin.
Well, let me ask you this question. We've mentioned the name DeAndre Jordan as a potential moving piece there for the Clippers. From the people you've spoken to over the last several days, how much interest is there still in DeAndre Jordan?
I think there's interest in Jordan. It's just a matter of how much they can get back for him. And I think teams like Milwaukee, Cleveland, have potential interest in deals with him. But certainly Blake Griffin all along has been, the player that has the greatest interest. So I'm going to continue to work on the story here, and I'm sure I'll have an update here probably in the near future.
All right, well, you've got the number. When you do have an update, give us a call back here on
Thanks,
SportsCenter. Again, the breaking news, Adrian Wojnarowski reporting that the Clippers are engaged in serious talks to deal Blake Griffin to the Detroit Pistons. I don't think it's hyperbole here to say this would be a seismic move.
Without question.
Going into the NBA trade deadline. Still more ahead on SportsCenter tonight. Teddy Bruschi won 4 Super Bowl rings. Ryan Clark has one of his own. Both have been a part of the craziness of Media Day. Their secrets to surviving